The worst moment of Candace Morrison's life started with her husband's voice floating through her phone speaker while she was chopping onions for dinner. She wasn't trying to eavesdrop. Trevor had called her 20 minutes earlier asking what time dinner would be ready, and she thought he'd hung up. But he hadn't. His phone was still connected to hers, sitting in her apron pocket, broadcasting every word he said after he thought their conversation ended. "Baby, I can't wait to see you tonight," Trevor's voice murmured, thick with an intimacy that made Candace's hands freeze mid-chop. "Yeah, she thinks I'm at the office late. She always believes everything I tell her." The knife slipped from Candace's fingers and clattered against the cutting board. Her heart hammered so hard she could hear it in her ears, drowning out everything except Trevor's voice continuing through the phone. "The transfer went through this morning. Check your account. 15,000 just like I promised. Consider it an early birthday present." Candace's legs gave out and she slid down the kitchen cabinet to the floor, her hands shaking as she pulled the phone from her pocket. The call timer showed 23 minutes and counting. Trevor was still talking, completely unaware that his wife was listening to every word. "Whitney, you know I love you. This thing with Candace, it's complicated. We've been together for 12 years, married for 8. I can't just leave without figuring out the finances first. But I promise we'll be together soon. Just give me a little more time." Whitney. The name hit Candace like a physical blow. She knew Whitney. Whitney Rodriguez worked in Trevor's office building, a paralegal at the law firm 2 floors below his accounting practice. They'd met her at the company holiday party last year. Candace had thought she seemed nice. I know, Trevor continued, his tone soothing. "You've been patient, and I appreciate that. But Candace has no idea about the money I've been moving. She doesn't even look at the bank statements. She trusts me completely. It makes everything easier." Tears streamed down Candace's face, but she didn't make a sound. She couldn't. Every word Trevor spoke was like a nail being driven into the coffin of their marriage, and she needed to hear it all. "The house is in both our names, but I've been documenting everything, how she doesn't contribute financially, how she stopped working when her mom got sick. My lawyer says I can use that. She'll get something in the divorce, but not half. Not after I'm done showing how she's been living off me for years." Living off him. Candace almost laughed at the cruel irony. She'd given up her marketing career when her mother was diagnosed with cancer 3 years ago. Trevor had insisted, had said they didn't need the money, that family was more important. He'd held her while she cried about leaving her job, had promised her she could always go back when things settled down. Her mother had passed away 18 months ago, and Trevor had encouraged her to take more time to heal, to not rush back into the workforce. Now she understood why. He'd been setting her up, making her financially dependent, building his case for a divorce that would leave her with as little as possible while he ran off with Whitney. "Tomorrow night?" Trevor said, and Candace could hear the smile in his voice. "Yeah, I can do that. I'll tell her I have a client dinner. We can go to that place you like downtown. Wear the red dress I bought you." The red dress he bought her. With money from their joint account. Money that was supposed to be for their future, their retirement, the children they'd talked about having someday. "All right, baby. I need to go. I'm supposed to be home in 30 minutes and I haven't even left the office yet. Love you." The call ended. The sudden silence in Candace's kitchen was deafening. She sat on the floor for a long time, the phone clutched in her hand, tears drying on her cheeks. The onions on the cutting board began to brown at the edges. The pot of water she'd put on to boil had evaporated to nothing, the empty pot beginning to smoke. Candace stood up slowly, turned off the stove and put the pot in the sink. She looked at the half-prepared dinner, at the table she'd set for 2 with the good plates because it was Friday and she always tried to make Friday dinners special. Then she walked to her laptop, opened it and began to search. She searched for divorce attorneys in her city. She searched for private investigators. She searched for information about marital assets and financial fraud. She searched for her own name in her email inbox, finding the password reset links for their joint bank account that she hadn't looked at in months. When she logged into their bank account, her stomach turned. Trevor hadn't been lying. There were transfers, dozens of them over the past 2 years. 500 here, 1,000 there, building up to the 15,000 he'd mentioned today. All going to an account she didn't recognize. Candace created a new folder on her laptop titled Recipe Collection. Inside it, she began documenting everything. Screenshots of bank transfers. Recordings. She realized she could check if her phone had recorded the call. It had. She saved the audio file. She worked methodically, her hands steady now, her tears dried. The initial shock was wearing off, being replaced by something colder, harder, more focused. By the time she heard Trevor's car in the driveway 40 minutes later, Candace had showered, changed into comfortable clothes and ordered pizza. The kitchen was clean. There was no evidence of the dinner she'd been preparing, no evidence that anything had changed at all. "Hey honey," Trevor called out as he walked through the door, loosening his tie. He looked the same as he had that morning, tall, handsome, with the easy smile that had first attracted her to him in college. Now that smile made her sick. "Hey," Candace said, keeping her voice light. "I wasn't feeling up to cooking, so I ordered pizza. Hope that's okay." "Of course," Trevor said, dropping his briefcase and walking over to kiss her cheek. Candace forced herself not to flinch. "You feeling all right?" "Just tired," she said. "You know how it is." "You should take it easy," Trevor said, his voice full of false concern. "You've been pushing yourself too hard lately." Candace smiled at him and it didn't reach her eyes. "You're probably right. I should definitely start taking better care of myself." That night, while Trevor slept beside her, probably dreaming about Whitney and the life he was planning without her, Candace lay awake, staring at the ceiling. She wasn't going to confront him. Not yet. Not until she had everything she needed. Trevor thought she was naive, thought she didn't pay attention, thought she would be easy to discard. He was about to learn how wrong he was. Her husband had made one mistake. He forgot to hang up a phone call. That one mistake had exposed everything. And Candace was going to make sure he paid for every lie, every stolen dollar, every moment he'd spent making her feel loved while planning her destruction. The revenge wouldn't be quick. It wouldn't be loud. It would be calculated, methodical, and absolutely devastating. And it started tomorrow. Candace woke up at 5:30 on Saturday morning, carefully sliding out of bed so she wouldn't wake Trevor. He was snoring softly, one arm flung across her side of the bed, completely at peace. The sight of him sleeping so soundly while her world had shattered made something twist in her chest, but she pushed the feeling down. She had work to do. In the guest bathroom down the hall, she locked the door and opened her laptop. The recipe collection folder now contained everything she gathered last night, but it wasn't enough. She needed more. She needed a strategy. The first divorce attorney's office wouldn't open until Monday, but Candace sent emails to 3 different firms requesting consultations. She marked them as urgent. Then she researched private investigators, reading reviews and comparing rates. She bookmarked several options. At 6:15 she heard Trevor stirring. She quickly closed her laptop and flushed the toilet for cover, then washed her hands and walked back to the bedroom as if she'd just gotten up. "Morning," Trevor mumbled, stretching. "You're up early." "Couldn't sleep," Candace said truthfully. "Thought I'd get some things done around the house." "It's Saturday," Trevor said. "Come back to bed for a while." The thought of lying next to him, of pretending everything was normal, made Candace's skin crawl. But she couldn't let him suspect anything was wrong. "I'll make us breakfast first," she said. "Pancakes." Trevor smiled. "Sounds perfect." While she made pancakes, Trevor sat at the kitchen table scrolling through his phone. Candace watched him from the corner of her eye, wondering if he was texting Whitney, if he was making plans for their tomorrow night dinner. "I might go visit Patricia this afternoon," Candace said casually, flipping a pancake. Patricia was her best friend from college, someone she'd stayed close with through everything. "Haven't seen her in a few weeks." "That's good," Trevor said without looking up from his phone. "You should spend more time with your friends. You've been kind of isolated since your mom passed." "Because you encouraged it," Candace thought. "You wanted me isolated, dependent, easy to leave." "You're right," she said aloud. "I think I need to reconnect with people. Start getting out more." "Definitely," Trevor agreed. His phone buzzed and he smiled at whatever message he'd received. "Actually, I might go golfing with some guys from work. Get out of your hair for the day." "Sure," Candace said, setting a plate of pancakes in front of him. "Have fun." She wondered if golfing meant seeing Whitney. She wondered how many of his other late nights and work events had been lies. How long had this been going on? He'd said 2 years on the phone. 2 years of deception while she'd been caring for her dying mother, grieving, trying to hold herself together. After breakfast, Trevor left for his supposed golf game. The moment his car pulled out of the driveway, Candace called Patricia. "Candy?" Patricia answered, using her old college nickname. "What's wrong? You sound weird." "Can I come over? I need to talk to you about something important. And I need to use your computer." "Of course. Come now." Patricia lived 20 minutes away in a townhouse she'd bought after her own divorce 5 years ago. She'd been through this, Candace realized. She would understand. When Candace arrived, Patricia took one look at her face and pulled her into a hug. Tell me everything, Patricia said. So Candace did. She played the recording of Trevor's phone call. She showed Patricia the bank transfers. She explained everything she'd discovered in the past 18 hours. Patricia's expression grew darker with every revelation. When Candace finished, her friend was quiet for a long moment. That son of a bitch, Patricia finally said. He planned this. He deliberately made you dependent so you'd have less leverage in a divorce. I know, Candace said. That's why I need to be smart about this. I can't just confront him. I need evidence. I need documentation. I need to protect myself financially. Okay, Patricia said, her voice shifting into the practical, problem-solving tone that had made her such a successful real estate agent. Let's make a plan. First, we document everything. Every transfer, every lie, every piece of evidence you can find. Second, you get a lawyer, a good one, someone who specializes in cases with hidden assets and financial manipulation. Third, you protect your own money. Do you have any accounts in just your name? Candace shook her head. Everything is joint or in his name. I haven't worked in 3 years. Then we fix that today, Patricia said. We're going to open you a new bank account at a different bank, one Trevor doesn't use. You're going to start moving money into it, not huge amounts that he'll notice but enough to build a safety net. You're also going to gather every financial document you can find. Tax returns, investment statements, property deeds, everything. They spent the afternoon executing Patricia's plan. They opened a new account at a credit union across town in Candace's name only. They made copies of every financial document Candace could access from their home files. Patricia showed her how to check Trevor's social media privacy settings, how to see if there were photos or posts he'd hidden from her. There were. Lots of them. Pictures of Whitney that Trevor had posted on his secondary Instagram account, the one Candace didn't even know existed. The two of them at restaurants, at the beach, at a hotel in the mountains. All while Trevor had told Candace he was at work events or conferences. I'm going to be sick, Candace whispered, staring at a photo of Trevor kissing Whitney on what appeared to be a boat. No, you're not, Patricia said firmly. You're going to screenshot every single one of these, save them to your folder, and use them to take him for everything he's worth. By the time Candace left Patricia's house that evening, she had a flash drive full of evidence, a new bank account with $500 in it, and a list of 3 attorney names Patricia had gotten from colleagues who'd been through difficult divorces. When she got home, Trevor's car was already in the driveway. She took a deep breath, composed her face, and walked inside. How was Patricia? Trevor asked from the couch where he was watching a football game. Good, Candace said. How was golf? Great. Shot an 84. Liar, Candace thought. You don't even golf. I'm going to take a bath, she said. Long day. In the bathroom, she locked the door and checked her email on her phone. One of the attorneys had already responded, offering a consultation for Monday morning at 9. Candace confirmed the appointment. She ran the bath water hot and sat in it until it cooled, thinking about her next moves. She needed to be careful. If Trevor suspected she knew about the affair and the money, he might move assets she hadn't found yet. He might destroy evidence. She had to act normal, had to be patient, had to wait until she had everything she needed before making a single move he could see. That night at dinner, take-out Chinese food that Trevor had picked up, he seemed relaxed, happy even. He talked about his week, about a new client he'd taken on, about plans for upgrading their landscaping in the spring. Candace listened and nodded and smiled, all while thinking about the $15,000 he'd transferred to Whitney yesterday. All while remembering his voice on that phone call, promising another woman a future while discussing how to minimize what his wife would get in the divorce. You're quiet tonight, Trevor observed. Just thinking, Candace said. About what? About the future, she said, meeting his eyes across the table. About what comes next. Trevor smiled, completely missing the meaning behind her words. Well, I think our future looks pretty good. Don't you? Candace smiled back. I think everything is about to change. The attorney's office was in a high-rise downtown, all glass and steel and expensive furniture. Candace sat in the waiting room on Monday morning, her palms sweating despite the cool air conditioning. She told Trevor she was going to a doctor's appointment, a gynecologist visit, which she knew he would never question or want details about. Mrs. Morrison? A woman in her 50s with sharp eyes and an expensive suit appeared in the doorway. I'm Rebecca Chin. Please come in. Mrs. Morrison? A woman in her 50s with sharp eyes and an expensive suit appeared in the doorway. I'm Rebecca Walsh. Please come in. Candace followed her into a corner office with views of the city. Rebecca gestured to a leather chair across from her desk. I read your email, Rebecca said, settling into her own chair. You mentioned your husband has been transferring marital assets to another woman and may be planning to file for divorce on terms unfavorable to you. Tell me everything and don't leave anything out. Everything you say here is protected by attorney-client privilege. Candace took a deep breath and began. She told Rebecca about the phone call, about the 2 years of transfers, about Trevor's comments about making her look financially dependent. She showed Rebecca the recordings, the screenshots, the bank statements, the hidden social media posts. Rebecca listened without interrupting, occasionally making notes on a legal pad. When Candace finished, the attorney leaned back in her chair with a slight smile. Mrs. Morrison, I'm going to be direct with you. What your husband has done is not only morally reprehensible, it's also legally problematic for him. Transferring marital assets to a third party without your knowledge or consent is considered dissipation of marital property. The fact that he's been documenting a false narrative about you not contributing financially while he systematically isolates you and depletes joint accounts shows a pattern of financial abuse and manipulation. Can we use that? Candace asked. Absolutely. In fact, with the evidence you've gathered, we can not only ensure you get your fair share in the divorce, we can potentially seek reimbursement for everything he's given to this Whitney woman, plus additional compensation for his fraudulent behavior. We can also pursue criminal charges if you want. Fraud, theft, embezzlement of marital assets. Candace felt a weight lift from her chest. What do I need to do? First, we need to gather more evidence. You've made an excellent start, but I want to know everything. Every account, every asset, every investment. Does your husband have retirement accounts? Investment portfolios? Real estate beyond your primary residence? I think so, Candace said. He has a 401k through his firm. And I think there are some stocks, maybe bonds? He always handled all of that. That's common, Rebecca said. And it's exactly what we're going to unravel. I'm going to have you work with my paralegal to request copies of every financial document you can access. Credit card statements, loan documents, insurance policies, everything. Don't let your husband know you're doing this. Can you access his computer or email? Candace thought about it. He has a home office. He doesn't usually lock his computer when he's home. Be very careful, Rebecca warned. I'm not asking you to do anything illegal. But if his computer is in your shared home and he doesn't have it password protected, information you happen to see on it could be useful. Document it if you can, but don't hack into anything or break any passwords. I understand, Candace said. They spent the next hour going over strategy. Rebecca explained that they would wait to file for divorce until they had a complete picture of all marital assets. They would document Trevor's affair and financial misconduct thoroughly. When they did file, it would be devastating and complete. One more thing, Rebecca said as their meeting ended. Your husband mentioned he has a lawyer already, someone who's been advising him on how to structure the divorce. That means he's been planning this for a while. We need to move faster than he expects. Can you maintain the facade at home? Act normal, don't let him suspect anything has changed. Candace thought about the past 3 days, about smiling at Trevor over breakfast, about kissing him goodnight, about pretending everything was fine. Yes, she said. I can do that. That afternoon, while Trevor was at work, Candace went through his home office with methodical precision. She photographed documents, copied files from his computer onto a flash drive, searched through drawers and filing cabinets. She found their tax returns from the past 7 years. She found statements for investment accounts she didn't know existed. She found an insurance policy for $250,000 that listed her as the beneficiary, which almost made her laugh given that Trevor was planning to divorce her. And she found a folder labeled Personal that contained printed emails between Trevor and Whitney going back 26 months. Candace sat in Trevor's desk chair and read through them, her stomach churning with every page. The affair had started at an office party. A drunken hookup that Trevor had claimed in his emails was a mistake, but that he couldn't stop thinking about. Whitney had pursued him, sending flirty messages, suggesting they meet for coffee, for drinks, for dinner. But Trevor had been a willing participant. His responses were enthusiastic, eager, planning their next meeting, expressing frustration about having to go home to his wife. Candace is so needy lately, one email from 14 months ago read. Her mother's death hit her hard and she wants me around all the time. It's suffocating. I need space to breathe, space to be with you. Candace remembered that time. She'd been drowning in grief, barely able to get out of bed some days. Trevor had seemed distant, but she'd assumed he was dealing with his own sadness. He'd liked her mother, had called her mom for the past 8 years. Now she understood. He'd been annoyed by her grief. It had interfered with his affair. Another email from 9 months ago. I talked to that lawyer friend I mentioned. He says if I can show Candace hasn't been contributing financially and has been living off my income, I can argue for a smaller settlement. The house is the tricky part since it's in both our names, but he thinks we can work it out. I need to be patient, build my case. In the meantime, keep spending the money I send you. You deserve it. Candace took photos of every email with her phone. There were 43 pages total. Every single one was evidence of premeditation, of planning, of a man who'd been systematically preparing to abandon his wife while minimizing what he owed her. The last email in the folder was from 2 weeks ago. Whitney had written, "When are you actually going to leave her? I'm tired of waiting. You keep saying soon but nothing changes." Trevor's response, "By the end of the year. I promise. I just need to make sure all the finances are in order. She has no idea what's coming. It'll be quick and clean, and then we can finally be together for real. By the end of the year." That was 6 weeks away. Trevor had been planning to file for divorce before Christmas, to blow up their life during the holidays. Candace closed the folder, her hands shaking. She made copies of everything, saved it all to her flash drive, and carefully returned the folder to exactly where she'd found it. When Trevor came home that night, Candace was in the kitchen making his favorite dinner, pot roast with vegetables and mashed potatoes. She'd stopped by the store specifically to buy the ingredients. "Wow," Trevor said, clearly surprised. "This smells amazing. What's the occasion?" "No occasion," Candace said brightly. "I just felt like cooking something nice. We haven't had a good home-cooked meal in a while." Trevor kissed her cheek. "You're the best, you know that?" "I try," Candace said. They ate dinner together, talking about their days. Trevor complained about a difficult client. Candace told him about a book she'd been reading. It was so normal, so routine, that she almost could have believed the past few days had been a nightmare, that the evidence she'd gathered didn't exist. But it did exist. And tomorrow she would deliver it all to Rebecca Walsh and continue building her case. After dinner, Trevor went to watch television while Candace cleaned up. She was putting dishes in the dishwasher when her phone buzzed with a text from Patricia. "How'd it go with the lawyer?" "Better than I hoped," Candace texted back. "She's good. Really good. This is going to work." "Damn right it is," Patricia responded. "He has no idea what's coming." No, Candace thought, looking through the doorway at Trevor sprawled on the couch, scrolling through his phone, probably texting Whitney. He has absolutely no idea. And that was exactly how she wanted it. Over the next 2 weeks, Candace fell into a double life that would have been exhausting if she wasn't fueled by pure determination. During the day while Trevor was at work, she was a woman on a mission, meeting with Rebecca Walsh, delivering documents, signing papers, and building an airtight case. At night, she was the devoted wife, cooking dinners and asking about Trevor's day, smiling when he kissed her, pretending she didn't notice when he stepped outside to take phone calls from Whitney. Rebecca had hired a private investigator named Thomas Grant, a former police detective who specialized in marital cases. Thomas had been following Trevor for a week, documenting his movements, photographing him with Whitney at restaurants and hotels. "Your husband isn't even being careful," Thomas told Candace during one of their meetings at Rebecca's office. He spread photos across the conference table. "Look at this," he took her to Russo's on 5th Street last Tuesday. That's 3 blocks from his office. He's holding her hand in public, kissing her outside the restaurant. Either he thinks you're completely oblivious or he just doesn't care anymore. Candace studied the photos. Trevor looked happy in them, genuinely happy in a way she hadn't seen him look at her in years. The realization hurt, but she pushed the pain aside. There would be time to grieve later. Right now she needed to focus. "There's something else," Thomas said, pulling out another folder. "I checked public records and did some digging into Whitney Rodriguez. She has a history. This isn't her first affair with a married man. 3 years ago she was named in another divorce case, a man she worked with at her previous law firm. His wife found out, filed for divorce, and went after Whitney for alienation of affection. The case settled out of court. Can we use that?" Candace asked. Rebecca nodded. "It establishes a pattern of behavior. It shows she knowingly pursues married men. Combined with the evidence of the money your husband has been giving her, we can potentially pursue a separate civil case against her for financial damages." "I don't want anything from her," Candace said firmly. "I just want her to leave me alone when this is over. No contact, no apologies, nothing. I want her completely out of my life." "That can be arranged," Rebecca said. "We can include a no-contact clause in the settlement negotiations. If either of them violates it, there will be financial penalties. They turned their attention to the finances. Rebecca's forensic accountant, a woman named Grace Palmer, had been going through every statement and document Candace had provided. Your husband is clever, but not as clever as he thinks, Grace explained, showing Candace a spreadsheet on her laptop. He's been moving money in small increments to avoid triggering reporting requirements. But over 2 years, it adds up to just over $78,000 transferred to Whitney Rodriguez. That's not including the gifts, jewelry, clothes, the car lease he's paying for her. Car lease. Candace felt like she'd been punched. A BMW, Grace said. Leased 18 months ago. Monthly payments of $640, all coming from your joint account. Candace did the math in her head. Almost $12,000 for a car lease for a woman he was cheating with, using money that belonged to both of them. There's more, Grace continued. Your husband has been contributing extra to his retirement accounts, which is smart normally, but he's been doing it strategically to move money into accounts that are harder to divide in a divorce. He's also taken out a home equity line of credit against your house without telling you. What? Candace felt cold. $40,000 borrowed against the equity in your home 6 months ago. You should have been notified, should have had to sign off on it. But somehow he managed to do it without your signature. That's fraud, Mrs. Morrison. That's a crime. Rebecca leaned forward. This actually works in our favor. Every illegal or shady thing he's done strengthens our case. But we need to know, what did he do with that $40,000? Grace pulled up another screen. Looks like $30,000 went into an investment account in his name only. The other $10,000 went to Whitney in various transfers over the past few months. Candace felt rage building in her chest, hot and fierce. Trevor had mortgaged their home, had put them in debt, to give money to his mistress and hide assets from his wife. Can we get it back? She asked. All of it, Rebecca said. We're going to make sure every penny he stole, every dollar he hid comes back to you. Plus interest. Plus damages. Plus attorney's fees. By the time we're done, Trevor is going to wish he'd never made that phone call. But there was still work to do. Rebecca wanted Candace to secure her own financial future before they filed for divorce. You said you used to work in marketing, Rebecca said. What would it take for you to get back into that field? Candace thought about it. She'd been good at her job, had been on track for a promotion when she left. But that was 3 years ago. The industry had changed. She'd lost her contacts, her momentum. I don't know, she admitted. I've been out of the field for a long time. Start networking, Rebecca advised. Update your resume. Reach out to old colleagues. We want you to be able to show independent income when this goes to court. It undermines Trevor's argument that you're financially dependent on him. That night, Candace sat at her laptop after Trevor had gone to bed and updated her LinkedIn profile for the first time in 3 years. She felt rusty, uncertain. Her last position had been as a marketing coordinator at a mid-sized tech company. She'd been responsible for social media campaigns, content creation, and event planning. She started reaching out to former colleagues, sending friendly messages asking how they'd been, what they were working on. Some didn't respond. But several did, and their messages were warm and welcoming. Candy. I was wondering what happened to you, wrote her former boss, Jennifer Huang. We missed you after you left. What are you doing these days? Candace explained that she'd taken time off for family reasons but was thinking about getting back into marketing. Jennifer's response came quickly. We should talk. I'm at a different company now and we're actually looking for someone with your skills. Interested in having coffee? Candace stared at the message, her heart pounding. This could be real. She could actually rebuild her career, could become independent again. She agreed to meet Jennifer the following week. In the meantime, she continued her careful documentation of Trevor's activities. She'd gotten into a routine. Check the joint account daily for new suspicious charges, photograph any documents left in his office, back up everything to multiple secure locations. One evening, while Trevor was in the shower, his phone buzzed on the nightstand. Candace glanced at it and saw a text from Whitney. Can't wait for tomorrow night. Wear that cologne I like. Tomorrow night was Thursday. Trevor had told Candace he had a late meeting with a client, that he wouldn't be home until 9 or 10. Candace picked up Trevor's phone. She knew his passcode, he'd never bothered to hide it from her, another sign of how much he'd underestimated her. She opened his messages with Whitney and scrolled through them, reading weeks of intimate conversations, planning sessions, discussions about their future together. Only a few more weeks, Trevor had written yesterday. Then I'll tell her. I've already consulted with my lawyer. She won't fight it because she won't have a choice. Candace took screenshots of everything, sent them to her own email, then deleted the sent messages and carefully returned the phone to exactly where it had been. When Trevor came out of the shower, she was lying in bed reading a book, The Picture of Innocence. "What are you reading?" he asked. "A thriller," Candace said. "About a woman who gets revenge on everyone who wronged her." "Sounds intense," Trevor said, climbing into bed beside her. "It is," Candace agreed. "But satisfying. She plans everything perfectly. They never see it coming." Trevor laughed. "That's the best kind of revenge. The kind where they don't know what hit them until it's too late." Candace smiled in the darkness. "Exactly." Coffee with Jennifer Huang turned into a job interview, which turned into a freelance contract, which turned into the possibility of something Candace hadn't felt in years: her own money and her own purpose. "We're launching a new product line in 3 months, Jennifer explained over coffee at a cafe downtown. It was a Tuesday morning, and Candace had told Trevor she was going to a yoga class. "We need someone to handle the marketing campaign, social media strategy, content creation, influencer partnerships, the works. It's a 6-month contract to start, but if it goes well, we're looking at a full-time position." "What's the timeline?" Candace asked, trying to keep her voice professional despite the excitement building in her chest. "We'd need you to start next week. The pay is $60,000 for the contract period, paid monthly. Does that work for you?" $60,000. Candace's own money. Money Trevor couldn't touch, couldn't steal, couldn't give to Whitney. "Yes," Candace said. "That definitely works." They shook hands and Jennifer smiled. "Welcome back to the working world, Candy. I always knew you'd come back. You were too good at this to stay away forever." Candace drove home in a daze, gripping the steering wheel with shaking hands. She had a job. She was going to be earning money again, building her own financial security. When Rebecca filed the divorce papers, she wouldn't be the helpless, dependent wife Trevor thought she was. She'd be a woman with her own income, her own prospects, her own future. She called Rebecca from her car, pulling over to the side of the road because her hands were shaking too much to drive safely. "I got a job," she said when Rebecca answered. "A marketing contract. $60,000 for 6 months. "That's excellent news," Rebecca said. "This changes everything. Trevor's whole strategy was based on you being financially dependent. Now you're not. This is going to hurt him in court, and I couldn't be happier about it." Candace took a deep breath. "How much longer until we file?" 2 more weeks, Rebecca said. "We're still waiting on some investment statements to come through, and Thomas is finishing his surveillance report. But we're almost there, Candace. Almost ready to move." 2 more weeks. Candace could do 2 more weeks of pretending, of smiling at Trevor over dinner, of listening to him lie about where he was going and what he was doing. When she got home, Trevor was in his office on a video call. She could hear him through the door, using his professional voice, discussing tax strategies with what sounded like a client. Or maybe it wasn't a client. Maybe it was Whitney, pretending to be a work call while they planned their Thursday night date. Candace went to the kitchen and started dinner, putting chicken in the oven to roast. While it cooked, she opened her laptop and began working on her new job. Jennifer had sent over the creative brief and access to the company's marketing materials. Candace dove into the work, and it felt like coming home after a long absence. She'd forgotten how much she enjoyed this. The strategy, the creativity, the satisfaction of building something from nothing. Marketing was about telling stories, creating narratives that connected with people. In a way, she'd been doing that for the past 3 weeks, creating a narrative of her own. The unsuspecting wife, living her normal life while secretly gathering everything she needed to destroy the man who'd betrayed her. By the time Trevor finished his call and came out of his office, Candace had the beginnings of a social media strategy mapped out. She closed her laptop quickly as he walked into the kitchen. "That smells great," Trevor said. "What are you making?" "Roast chicken with vegetables," Candace said. "Should be ready in about 20 minutes. "Perfect." Trevor grabbed a beer from the fridge. "Hey, I need to tell you, I've got a client dinner on Thursday night. Probably won't be home until late." There it was. The lie delivered so casually with such practiced ease. "No problem," Candace said. "I'll probably work late myself actually. I've been thinking about doing some consulting work. A friend from my old job reached out about a project." She watched Trevor's face carefully. For just a second, something flickered in his expression. Concern, maybe, or calculation. But then it was gone, replaced by a supportive smile. "That's great, honey," he said. "You should definitely do it. It would be good for you to get back out there." He didn't ask what kind of work. He didn't ask how much it paid. He didn't ask any of the questions a husband who actually cared about his wife's career would ask. Because he didn't care. He just wanted her busy and distracted. I think so too, Candace said. It's time I started thinking about my future. Thursday night came. Trevor put on his expensive suit, the one Candace had bought him for their anniversary 2 years ago, and splashed on cologne. He kissed Candace goodbye at 6:30, telling her not to wait up. Have fun at your meeting, Candace said. Have fun with your project, Trevor replied. The moment his car pulled out of the driveway, Candace called Thomas Grant. He just left, she said. Are you on him? I've got him, Thomas confirmed. He's heading downtown. I'll send you updates. Candace spent the evening working on her marketing project, genuinely focused on the task at hand. Every hour, Thomas sent her text updates. Subject and Whitney Rodriguez at Russo's restaurant. Subject and Whitney Rodriguez checking into Fairmont Hotel. Subject and Whitney Rodriguez entering hotel room 847. At 10:15, Trevor texted Candace, meeting running long. Probably won't be home until midnight. Don't wait up. At 10:17, Thomas sent a photo of Trevor and Whitney kissing in the hotel hallway. Candace saved the photo to her evidence folder and went back to work. By the time Trevor came home at 12:30, smelling like perfume and hotel soap, Candace was in bed with her laptop, working on content calendars and promotional strategies. She looked up when he came in, trying to appear sleepy. How was your meeting? She asked. Long, Trevor said. Exhausting. This client is really demanding. You should get some sleep then, Candace said. What about you? Trevor asked, noticing the laptop. What are you working on so late? The consulting project I mentioned. It's actually turning into something bigger. They want to hire me for a 6-month contract. Trevor paused in the middle of taking off his tie. A contract? Like a real job? A real job, Candace confirmed. Good pay, flexible hours, doing what I'm actually good at. I start officially next week. She watched him process this information. She could see him trying to figure out what it meant, how it affected his plans. That's great, he finally said, but his voice lacked conviction. Really great, Candy. I'm proud of you. Thanks, Candace said. I'm proud of me too. It feels good to be building something for myself again. For my future. That night, Trevor tossed and turned beside her, unable to sleep. Candace lay still, pretending to be asleep, wondering if he was realizing that his carefully laid plans were starting to unravel. The next morning, she submitted her first week of work to Jennifer and received enthusiastic approval. Her second paycheck would come in 3 weeks, direct deposited into her private account that Trevor didn't know existed. She was building a foundation, a future, a life that didn't include Trevor Morrison at all. And in less than 2 weeks, she was going to blow his entire world apart. Rebecca Walsh called on a Wednesday morning, 2 weeks after Candace had started her new job. We're ready, Rebecca said. We have everything we need. The question is, how do you want to do this? Candace sat in her car in a coffee shop parking lot, her morning latte cooling in the cup holder. She'd been thinking about this moment for weeks, planning it, imagining it. Trevor's parents are coming to dinner this Friday, she said slowly. Trevor invited them. He does that once a month, has his parents over, plays the good son, the family man. And? Rebecca prompted. And I want to do it then, Candace said. I want to tell him in front of them. I want them to know what their son has been doing. There was a pause on the other end of the line. Then Rebecca spoke carefully. Candace, I understand the impulse. But you need to think about this. A public confrontation, especially with family present, could get emotional. It could get messy. He was going to divorce me at Christmas, Candace said, her voice hard. He was going to destroy our marriage during the holidays at the time of year when my mother's death hits me hardest. He deserves messy. He deserves public humiliation. All right, Rebecca said. If that's how you want to play it, we'll make it happen. I'll have the divorce papers ready. You can serve him at dinner. But Candace, be prepared. His parents might not react the way you expect. Sometimes families protect their own, even when they're wrong. I know, Candace said. But I need to do this. I need them to see who he really is. Friday came. Candace spent the day cooking Trevor's mother's favorite meal, beef tenderloin with roasted potatoes and green beans. She set the table with their wedding china. She put on a nice dress and did her makeup carefully. She looked the part of the perfect daughter-in-law, the devoted wife. The divorce papers were in a folder in her bedroom, waiting. Trevor's parents arrived at 6. Harold and Diane Morrison were in their late 60s, retired and living in a golf community an hour away. They'd always been kind to Candace, had welcomed her into their family when she and Trevor married. She felt a pang of guilt for what she was about to do to them, but she pushed it aside. They needed to know the truth about their son. "Candace, this looks wonderful," Diane said, surveying the dining room table. "You've outdone yourself." "Thank you," Candace said. "I wanted tonight to be special." They sat down to dinner. Trevor opened a bottle of wine. Harold talked about his golf game. Diane asked about Candace's new job. Everything was pleasant and normal and civilized. Candace waited until they'd finished the main course and she brought out dessert, homemade apple pie, Harold's favorite. "Actually," she said, setting down the pie, "before we have dessert, there's something I need to discuss with everyone." Trevor looked up, confused. "What's that, honey?" Candace went to the bedroom and retrieved the folder. When she came back, she placed it on the table in front of Trevor. "What's this?" he asked, his voice wary now. "Divorce papers," Candace said calmly. "You've been served." The room went silent. Diane's fork clattered against her plate. Harold's face went pale. Trevor stared at the folder like it was a bomb. "What are you talking about?" Trevor said finally. "Candace, what?" "I know about Whitney," Candace said. Her voice was steady, controlled. "She practiced this. I know about the affair. I know about the money you've been giving her, $78,000 from our joint account over the past 2 years. I know about the car lease you're paying for her. I know about the $40,000 you stole from our home equity without my knowledge or consent. I know about the lawyer you've been consulting about how to minimize what I'd get in the divorce. I know everything, Trevor." Trevor's face had gone white. "Candace, let's talk about this privately." "No," Candace said. "We're not doing this privately. Your parents deserve to know what kind of man their son is." She turned to Harold and Diane, who were staring at her with shocked expressions. "I'm sorry to do this in front of you," Candace said. "But Trevor was planning to file for divorce at Christmas. He was going to blindside me during the holidays at the worst possible time. He's been systematically stealing from our marriage, hiding assets, and planning to make me look like a freeloader so he could give less in the settlement. All while having an affair with a woman from his office building." "That's not," Trevor started, but Candace cut him off. "I have recordings," she said, "of you talking to Whitney on the phone, discussing how I believe everything you tell me. How I'm so needy after my mother died. How you were going to use my grief and my time away from work against me in court. I have bank statements showing every transfer. I have photos of you and Whitney at restaurants, at hotels. I have emails going back 2 years where you discuss your plans to leave me while minimizing what you'd have to give me." She opened the folder and pulled out a stack of papers, sliding them across the table to Harold and Diane. "These are some of the bank transfers," she said. "These are photos from the private investigator I hired. These are excerpts from emails between Trevor and his lawyer, and between Trevor and Whitney." Diane picked up one of the photos with shaking hands. It showed Trevor and Whitney kissing outside a restaurant. She looked at her son with an expression Candace couldn't quite read. Shock, disappointment, maybe something harder. "Trevor," Harold said, his voice grave. "Is this true?" Trevor's hands were clenched into fists on the table. "Dad, it's complicated." "Is it true?" Harold repeated. Trevor's shoulders slumped. "Yes." Diane made a small sound like she'd been punched. She set down the photo and pushed back from the table. "I can't believe this," she said. "I can't believe you would do this to Candace. After everything she's been through, losing her mother." "You don't understand," Trevor said desperately. "Things haven't been good between us for a long time." "Because you made them that way," Candace interrupted. "You isolated me. You encouraged me to quit my job. You wanted me dependent so you could control the divorce. But it didn't work, Trevor. I have my own income now. I have my own lawyer. And I have enough evidence to not only take you for everything you're worth in the divorce, but to potentially press criminal charges for fraud and embezzlement." Trevor's face had gone from white to red. "You've been spying on me?" "You forgot to hang up a phone call," Candace said. "That's how this started. You called me 3 weeks ago and you didn't disconnect. I heard everything you said to Whitney. Every lie, every plan, every cruel comment about me. You did this to yourself." Harold stood up slowly. "Son, I think your mother and I should leave." "Dad, wait," Trevor started. "No," Harold said firmly. "We're not going to be part of this. Candace, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry for what he's done to you." Diane stood as well, touching Candace's shoulder gently as she passed. "You deserve better than this. You always did." They left through the front door and Candace heard their car start in the driveway. She and Trevor stood in the dining room in silence, The remains of the dinner she'd carefully prepared spread out on the table between them. "You had no right," Trevor began. "I had every right," Candace said. "You stole from me. You lied to me. You used my grief against me. And you were planning to humiliate me in divorce court. But instead, I'm going to destroy you. Legally. Completely. By the time this is over, you're going to wish you'd been honest with me from the start." She picked up her purse and car keys. "Where are you going?" Trevor demanded. "Somewhere you're not," Candace said. "I'm staying with a friend tonight. Tomorrow you're going to receive a detailed list from my attorney of everything we're demanding in the divorce. I suggest you get a good lawyer, Trevor. You're going to need one." She walked out of the house they'd bought together, got in her car, and drove to Patricia's townhouse. When Patricia opened the door, took one look at Candace's face and pulled her into a hug, Candace finally let herself cry. But they weren't tears of sadness. They were tears of relief, of release, of finally being free. "How'd it go?" Patricia asked when Candace had composed herself. Candace smiled through her tears. "Perfectly. Absolutely perfectly. The next 3 months were a war. Trevor hired an expensive attorney, a man named Philip Brooks who specialized in high-conflict divorces. Philip immediately filed motions claiming Candace had violated Trevor's privacy by recording phone calls and accessing his computer. Rebecca Walsh demolished every argument in court, citing the fact that the phone call was inadvertently recorded, that the computer was in a shared home and not password protected, and that Trevor's own fraudulent actions far outweighed any questionable evidence-gathering methods. The judge, a woman in her 50s named Sandra Okafor, reviewed the evidence and ruled in Candace's favor on every preliminary motion. "Mr. Morrison," Judge Okafor said during one hearing, peering over her glasses at Trevor, "your attorney is asking me to dismiss evidence of your client transferring nearly $80,000 of marital assets to a third party because of how that evidence was obtained. That's not going to happen. The evidence stands." Trevor's strategy shifted after that. Philip Brooks argued that the transfers to Whitney were gifts, that Trevor had every right to make, that the money came from his income, that Candace had not contributed financially to the marriage in years. Rebecca was ready. "Your Honor," she said, standing at the plaintiff's table with Candace beside her, "Mr. Morrison encouraged Mrs. Morrison to leave her career to care for her dying mother. He actively discouraged her from returning to work, creating financial dependence deliberately. This was not a wife choosing to live off her husband's income. This was a calculated plan to make her vulnerable in preparation for a divorce he'd been planning for years." She submitted the emails, the conversations with Trevor's lawyer, the documented timeline showing Trevor's encouragement of Candace leaving work and his subsequent planning for divorce. Judge Okafor was not impressed with Trevor's arguments. But the hardest part wasn't the legal battles. It was the emotional warfare that Trevor tried to wage outside the courtroom. He called Candace repeatedly, leaving voicemails that alternated between apologetic and angry. "I made mistakes, but you're destroying my life over them," one message said. "We can work this out if you just talk to me like a reasonable person." Candace didn't respond to any of them. Rebecca had instructed her to keep all communication going through the attorneys, and Candace was more than happy to comply. Trevor also tried to turn their friends against her. He told people Candace had ambushed him at dinner with his parents, that she'd refused to even discuss counseling, that she was taking everything out of proportion. But Candace had her own allies. Patricia made sure anyone who asked heard the truth, about the affair, about the stolen money, about Trevor's premeditated planning. Several of their mutual friends reached out to Candace expressing support and anger at what Trevor had done. Whitney tried to contact Candace once, sending an email to Candace's old work address that someone forwarded along. "I know you must hate me," the email began. "I just want you to understand that Trevor and I really love each other. This wasn't just some fling. We have a real connection. I hope someday you can find it in your heart to forgive us and move on with your life. Trevor feels terrible about how things happened. We both wish it could have been handled differently." Candace read the email once, felt her blood pressure rise, and then deleted it. She didn't respond. Whitney didn't deserve her words, her anger, or her forgiveness. Whitney was irrelevant. The divorce proceedings moved forward. Discovery revealed even more hidden assets than Grace Palmer had initially found. Offshore investment accounts, cryptocurrency holdings, a timeshare in Florida that Trevor had purchased with Whitney's name on the paperwork. "He really thought he was clever," Grace told Candace during one of their meetings. "But every transaction leaves a trail. And we found all of them." Trevor was ordered to provide complete financial disclosure. When he tried to claim certain accounts were separate property from before the marriage, Rebecca produced documentation showing he'd moved money into those accounts during the marriage using marital funds. By month 2 of the divorce, Trevor was getting desperate. His attorney filed for an emergency hearing, claiming that Trevor couldn't afford his current lifestyle and legal fees while maintaining the temporary support payments he'd been ordered to make to Candace. Judge Okafor listened to Philip Brooks' arguments, then turned to Rebecca. Does Mrs. Morrison have a response to these claims of financial hardship? Rebecca stood. Yes, Your Honor. Mr. Morrison's claims of hardship are questionable given that he's continued to make payments on a luxury car lease for Whitney Rodriguez, has taken 2 trips to Las Vegas in the past 6 weeks, and recently purchased a new Rolex watch for $8,000. We have the credit card statements. She submitted the evidence. Judge Okafor's expression hardened. Mr. Morrison, if you're going to claim financial hardship before this court, you need to actually demonstrate hardship. Making support payments to your wife while buying expensive watches and maintaining your girlfriend's BMW lease doesn't constitute hardship. Motion denied. Trevor exploded as they left the courtroom. Candace was walking to her car with Rebecca when she heard him shouting behind them. You're doing this to punish me, he yelled. You can't just ruin my life because your feelings are hurt. Candace turned around slowly. Trevor stood 20 feet away, his face red, his expensive suit disheveled from running his hands through his hair. I'm not ruining your life, Trevor, Candace said calmly. I'm getting what I'm legally entitled to. You ruined your own life when you decided to steal from our marriage and planned to humiliate me in court. I loved you, Trevor said. I gave you everything. You gave me lies, Candace replied. And you stole from me. Those aren't the same thing as love. She got in her car and drove away, leaving him standing in the parking lot. That night, Rebecca called with news. Trevor's attorney reached out, she said. They want to settle. They're willing to negotiate rather than go to trial. What are they offering? Candace asked. 60% of marital assets to you, 40% to him. He keeps his retirement account, you get the house and the investment accounts. He'll pay back half the money given to Whitney as part of the settlement. Candace did the math in her head. It was a reasonable offer, better than many people got in divorce settlements. But it wasn't what she deserved. No, she said. I want trial. I want everything we asked for in the original filing, 75% of marital assets, full reimbursement of everything he gave to Whitney, plus damages for emotional distress and fraud. And I want the no-contact clause enforceable with financial penalties. You're sure? Rebecca asked. Trial is a risk. We might not get everything we're asking for. I'm sure, Candace said. He was willing to take everything from me. I'm willing to fight for what's mine. Rebecca was quiet for a moment. Then she said, all right. We go to trial. Let's finish this. While the legal battle raged, Candace was building a new life that had nothing to do with Trevor Morrison. Her marketing contract had been extended and expanded. The product launch she'd worked on had exceeded expectations, and the company had offered her a full-time position with benefits and a salary of $95,000 a year. You're exactly what we needed, Jennifer told her during the offer meeting. Fresh perspective, innovative strategies, and the kind of work ethic we can build a department around. I want you to be our new marketing director. Candace accepted, feeling something she hadn't felt in years, pride in her own accomplishments, security in her own abilities. She'd also started therapy. Her therapist, Dr. Nicole Torres, was helping her process not just the betrayal but the years of subtle manipulation that had led to it. Emotional abuse doesn't always look like yelling, Dr. Torres explained during one of their sessions. Sometimes it looks like someone slowly eroding your confidence, your independence, your sense of self. Trevor isolated you financially and socially. He made you feel like you needed him, like you couldn't survive without him. That's abuse, even if he never raised his voice. Understanding that helped Candace make sense of the past 3 years. She'd thought she was being a supportive wife, sacrificing for family. But Trevor had been orchestrating her dependence. How do I make sure I don't fall into that pattern again? Candace asked. You stay aware, Dr. Torres said. You maintain your financial independence. You keep your friendship strong. You trust your gut when something feels wrong. And you remember that a real partner builds you up, not breaks you down. Candace threw herself into rebuilding her friendships too. She'd lost touch with so many people during the years of focusing on her mother's illness and then her grief. Now she reached out, reconnected, made plans. She had dinner with Patricia every week. She joined a book club. She started taking a dance class on Wednesday nights, something she'd always wanted to try but never had time for when she was playing the role of perfect wife. Her new apartment was small but bright, a one-bedroom in a building near downtown. She'd moved out of the house she'd shared with Trevor after the judge ordered it sold as part of the divorce proceedings. Trevor had been furious about losing the house, but Candace felt nothing but relief to be out of a space filled with so many painful memories. She decorated the apartment in colors she loved, deep blues and greens, nothing like the neutral beiges Trevor had insisted on for their house. She bought artwork that made her happy. She created a home office where she could work on her marketing projects. Every piece of furniture, every decoration was chosen by her alone. It was her space, her life, her fresh start. 6 months after she'd walked out of the dinner where she'd served Trevor with divorce papers, Candace's business had grown beyond her expectations. Companies were reaching out to her directly, asking for her expertise. She was making more money than she ever had before. And she was happy. Genuinely, independently happy. Trevor, meanwhile, was struggling. Word of the affair and financial fraud had spread through his professional circles. His accounting firm had quietly asked him to resign, not wanting the scandal associated with their practice. He'd found work at a smaller firm but at a significant pay cut. Whitney had left him 2 months into the divorce proceedings, apparently deciding that a man facing financial ruin wasn't as attractive as a man with money to spend on her. According to the mutual friends who kept Candace updated, Trevor had been devastated. Candace felt nothing about Whitney leaving. No satisfaction, no vindication. Whitney was simply irrelevant to her life now. Trevor tried one more time to reconcile. He showed up at Candace's apartment building on a Saturday morning, holding flowers and wearing the puppy dog expression he used to use when he wanted something. "Candy, please," he said when she came down to the lobby. "Can we just talk? I made mistakes. Terrible mistakes. But we can work through this. We had 12 years together. That has to count for something." Candace looked at the man she'd once planned to spend her life with. She tried to find some remaining feeling, anger, pain, anything. But all she felt was tired pity. "Trevor," she said quietly, "those 12 years do count for something. They taught me what I don't want, what I won't accept, what I deserve. And it's not you." "I love you," Trevor said desperately. "No, you don't," Candace replied. "You love the idea of not being alone, of not facing consequences for what you did. But you don't love me. If you loved me, you never would have done any of this." She turned and walked back into her building, leaving him standing there with his flowers. Rebecca called that afternoon. "Trevor's attorney contacted me," she said. "They want to settle again. This time they're offering everything we asked for in the trial prep. Full reimbursement, 75% of assets, the no-contact clause, all of it." Candace felt a wave of relief wash over her. They're conceding? Completely. They know they can't win at trial. The evidence is overwhelming. Trevor's reputation is already damaged. Going to trial would just make it worse. They want to settle and make this go away quietly. "Then let's do it," Candace said. "Let's end this." The settlement was finalized 2 weeks later. Candace walked out of the final meeting with a check for $460,000, full ownership of the investment accounts worth another $200,000, and a legal agreement that Trevor and Whitney would have no contact with her ever again. She also walked out with something more valuable: her freedom, her self-respect, and the knowledge that she'd fought for herself and won. That night, she celebrated with Patricia, Jennifer, and a few other friends at a nice restaurant downtown. "To Candace," Patricia said, raising her glass, "who proved that the best revenge is living well and taking everything he tried to steal from you." They clinked glasses and laughed, and Candace felt lighter than she had in years. She was finally free. And her new life was just beginning. 8 months after the divorce was finalized, Candace Morrison was interviewed for Business Spotlight, a regional magazine that featured successful entrepreneurs and executives. The reporter, a young woman named Ashley, sat across from Candace in her new corner office, recording their conversation. "So you went from unemployed and going through a difficult divorce to marketing director of one of the region's fastest-growing tech companies," Ashley said. "How did you manage that transformation?" Candace thought carefully about her answer. She'd been asked this question before in different forms, and she'd learned to tell the truth without dwelling on the painful details. "I think sometimes you don't know how strong you are until you have to be," Candace said. "I'd stepped away from my career for family reasons, and I wasn't sure I could get back to where I'd been. But I had great mentors who believed in me, and I had the motivation to prove to myself that I could build something on my own terms." "The divorce was reportedly quite contentious," Ashley said carefully. "Do you think that experience influenced your approach to business?" "It taught me to document everything," Candace said with a slight smile. and to trust my instincts. When something feels wrong, it usually is. Those lessons apply in business just as much as they do in personal life. The article would come out in 2 weeks. Candace knew Trevor would probably see it. She didn't care. Her company had just landed a major contract with a national retailer, a deal worth $3 million over 2 years. Candace had led the pitch, had presented the marketing strategy that had won them the account. Her boss had given her a bonus of $50,000 and hinted at a promotion to vice president within the year. She'd also started investing. Grace Palmer, the forensic accountant who'd helped unravel Trevor's financial deceptions, had become a friend and advisor. Grace had helped Candace set up a diversified portfolio, had taught her how to read investment statements, had shown her how to build real wealth. "You're a quick study," Grace said during one of their meetings. "A year ago you didn't even look at bank statements. Now you're asking me about index funds and tax strategies. I never want to be in a position where someone else controls my financial security," Candace said. Never again. Her apartment lease was ending, and Candace was looking at buying a condo, a 2-bedroom with floor-to-ceiling windows and a view of the city skyline. She could afford it comfortably now, could make the down payment without touching the settlement money. Life was good. Better than good. And then Trevor showed up at her office. Candace was reviewing quarterly reports when her assistant buzzed her. "There's a Trevor Morrison here to see you," the assistant said, clearly uncomfortable. "He doesn't have an appointment, but he says it's urgent." Candace's jaw tightened. Trevor knew where she worked. He'd probably seen her company mentioned in business news or social media. But showing up unannounced was a violation of the no-contact agreement. "Tell him I'm unavailable," Candace said. "And if he doesn't leave, call security." "Already done," her assistant said. "Security is escorting him out now." Candace stood and went to her office window, which overlooked the building's entrance. She watched as 2 security guards walked Trevor to his car. He looked smaller than she remembered, defeated. He'd lost weight, and his usually immaculate appearance was disheveled. She felt a flicker of something, not sympathy exactly, but a recognition of how far they'd both fallen from who they'd been when they first met. 2 college students with their whole lives ahead of them, in love and planning a future. That future was gone now. They'd both chosen different paths, his toward betrayal and hers toward independence. Rebecca called an hour later. "Trevor violated the no-contact clause," Candace said. "He came to my office." "I'll file a motion immediately," Rebecca said. "Under the settlement agreement, that's a $5,000 penalty for first violation. If he does it again, it doubles." "Good," Candace said. That evening, as Candace was leaving work, her phone buzzed with an email from an unfamiliar address. The subject line read, "Please read." Against her better judgment, Candace opened it. "Candace," the email began. "This is Whitney. I know you don't want to hear from me and I understand why. But I need you to know some things. Trevor lied to both of us. He told me you two were already separated, that the marriage was over, that you were fine with him moving on. I didn't know he was stealing money or planning to screw you over in the divorce. When I found out the truth, I left him. I'm not asking for your forgiveness. I just wanted you to know that I was lied to as well. I hope you're doing well. I really do." Candace read the email twice, then deleted it without responding. Maybe Whitney was telling the truth. Maybe she'd been a victim of Trevor's lies too. Or maybe this was just an attempt to clear her conscience, to make herself feel better about her role in destroying someone else's marriage. Either way, it didn't matter. Candace had moved on. She wasn't interested in Whitney's explanations or apologies. That chapter of her life was closed. 2 weeks later, the magazine article came out. There was a full-page photo of Candace in her office, professional and confident, with a 2-page spread detailing her career comeback and business success. Former stay-at-home wife rebuilds career after difficult divorce, becomes director of marketing for tech company, the headline read. The article was tasteful, focusing on her professional achievements rather than the salacious details of the divorce. But it made clear that she'd overcome significant personal challenges to get where she was. Messages poured in, from old colleagues, from people who'd read the article and been inspired, from professional organizations asking her to speak at events. One message stood out. It was from Harold Morrison, Trevor's father. "Candace," the message read, "I saw the article in Business Spotlight. I want you to know how proud I am of what you've accomplished. You deserved better than what my son gave you, and I'm glad to see you thriving. Diane and I think of you often and wish you nothing but the best. Please don't feel obligated to respond. We just wanted you to know you're in our thoughts." Candace sat with that message for a long time. Harold and Diane had been collateral damage in the divorce, losing a daughter-in-law they'd cared about because of their son's choices. She appreciated their message more than they probably knew. She wrote back, "Thank you for your kind words. I think of you both fondly as well. I wish you all the best." That night, Candace went to dinner with Patricia to celebrate the article. "You know what the best part of all this is?" Patricia said, grinning over her wine glass. "What?" "Trevor is probably reading this article right now, realizing that you didn't just survive without him, you're thriving. You're more successful than you ever were when you were married to him. That's the kind of revenge money can't buy." Candace smiled. "It's not about revenge anymore. It's just about living my life." "Even better," Patricia said. And it was true. Candace had stopped thinking about Trevor weeks ago. She was too busy building her career, investing in her future, creating a life she was genuinely excited about. The divorce, the betrayal, the pain, all of it had led her here to this moment, sitting with a good friend, celebrating her success, looking forward to what came next. She'd wanted revenge and she'd gotten it. But somewhere along the way she'd found something better, herself. 1 year after Candace had walked out of the house she'd shared with Trevor, she stood in the lobby of a downtown hotel, wearing a designer dress and waiting to accept an award. The Regional Business Association was honoring her as Marketing Professional of the Year for the innovative campaign she'd developed that had increased her company's market share by 40%. It was the kind of recognition she'd dreamed about early in her career, before she'd set those dreams aside. Now she was living them. Patricia stood beside her, wearing a proud smile. "You ready for this?" "More than ready," Candace said. The ceremony was elegant, a ballroom full of business leaders, a 4-course dinner, speeches from local executives. When Candace's name was called, she walked to the stage with her head high and her smile genuine. "Thank you," she said into the microphone, looking out at the crowd. "This award means more to me than you might imagine. A year ago I was starting over, rebuilding my career, rebuilding my life, learning to trust myself again. This recognition is a reminder that it's never too late to reclaim your power, your purpose, and your passion for the work you do." The audience applauded. Candace saw Jennifer in the front row, beaming with pride. She saw Grace Palmer, her financial advisor and friend. She saw Dr. Torres, her therapist who'd helped her heal. She saw her new life reflected in the faces of the people who'd supported her transformation. After the ceremony, as Candace was talking with other award recipients, her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Congratulations. You deserve it." No name, but she knew it was from Trevor. She deleted it without responding. Later that night, back at her new condo, she'd closed on the purchase 2 months ago, Candace sat on her balcony with a glass of wine and looked out at the city lights. Her phone rang. It was Rebecca Walsh. "Sorry to call so late," Rebecca said. "But I have some news I thought you'd want to hear tonight." "What's that?" "Remember that investment account we uncovered during the divorce, the one Trevor had set up in the Cayman Islands? The one he swore didn't exist until we produced the paperwork?" "That's the one." "Well, the court ordered him to liquidate it and split the assets. That happened 6 months ago. But what Trevor didn't know, and what I didn't tell you because I wanted to wait until it paid off, is that I recommended you take your half of those funds and invest them in a particular tech startup. A client of mine was involved and I thought it was a good opportunity." Candace's heart started beating faster. And that startup just got acquired by a major tech corporation. Your investment has increased by a factor of 12. You're looking at an additional $480,000, Candace. Candace nearly dropped her wine glass. "What?" "480,000, Rebecca repeated, and Candace could hear the smile in her voice. "The money Trevor tried to hide from you has just made you wealthier than he ever was during your marriage. The irony is beautiful." Candace started laughing. She couldn't help it. The sheer poetic justice of it all. Trevor's hidden money, the assets he tried to keep from her, had become the foundation of a fortune he'd never benefit from. "There's more," Rebecca said. "I got a call from Philip Brooks yesterday. Trevor's asking if you'd be willing to discuss a possible loan. Apparently, his financial situation has gotten worse. He's struggling to make his rent and car payments. And he thought I'd help him?" Candace asked, incredulous. "Apparently. I told Philip absolutely not, that the no-contact agreement stands, and that any further attempts to reach you would result in additional penalties. But I thought you should know he tried." Candace shook her head. The audacity was almost impressive. Trevor had stolen from her, planned to humiliate her, tried to leave her with nothing, and now he wanted her help. "Thank you for handling it," Candace said. And thank you for the investment advice. You've changed my life, Rebecca. You changed your own life, Rebecca said. I just helped with the paperwork. Enjoy your evening, Candace. You've earned it. After they hung up, Candace sat in silence, processing everything. In 1 year, she'd gone from a devastated wife discovering her husband's betrayal to an award-winning executive with financial security beyond anything she'd imagined. Trevor had tried to destroy her. Instead, he'd destroyed himself. She thought about the scared woman who'd sat on her kitchen floor listening to that phone call, whose world had shattered in an instant. She wished she could tell that woman that everything was going to be okay. Better than okay. That betrayal would lead to freedom. That pain would lead to power. That the worst moment of her life would become the catalyst for the best year of her life. Candace pulled out her journal. Dr. Torres had encouraged her to write, and she'd found it helpful in processing her emotions. She wrote, "A year ago tonight, I was planning a dinner that would expose Trevor's lies. I was terrified, angry, hurt. I wanted revenge. I wanted him to pay for what he'd done. I got my revenge. The legal kind, the financial kind, the professional kind. He lost money, lost his reputation, lost the life he thought he could build with Whitney. But somewhere along the way, revenge stopped being the goal. Building a life I was proud of became the goal. And I did it. Tonight I won an award for my work. Tonight I learned about an investment that's made me financially secure for years to come. Tonight I stood in a room full of people who respect me, who value my contributions, who see me as successful and capable. Trevor sees none of this. He's not part of it. He doesn't get to share in my success or celebrate my victories. And that's the best revenge of all, building something so good that he's completely irrelevant to it." She closed the journal and looked out at the city again. Somewhere out there, Trevor was struggling, asking his ex-wife for money, living with the consequences of his choices. Candace felt no satisfaction in his suffering. She felt nothing about him at all. That was true victory. Not hurting him but being completely free of him. Her phone buzzed again. This time it was Patricia. "Saw your award on social media. So proud of you. Lunch tomorrow to celebrate?" Candace smiled and texted back, "Absolutely. My treat." She had money to spend, success to celebrate, and a future that was entirely her own. Trevor had forgotten to hang up one phone call. That mistake had exposed everything, the affair, the financial fraud, the years of manipulation and lies. But that mistake had also freed Candace to become who she was always meant to be. As she sat on her balcony that night, looking out at her city, living in her home, celebrating her success, Candace Morrison realized something profound. The best revenge wasn't destroying Trevor. The best revenge was building a life so amazing that Trevor's betrayal became nothing more than the backstory to her triumph. And she'd done exactly that.